Hey guys, welcome back to Fierce in the Field. It's Josie Broyles, and I am so excited to get back in the swing of things. Had to take a little bit of a pause because of school and classes and trying to move Fierce in the Field to Bloomington, but I am so excited to have it here. There is so much talent here in Indiana, and I'm just glad to be back for my senior year of school and to kind of wrap everything up and have a lot of fun too as well. But there is so much that has happened in women's sports as well, like the Unrivaled League. It's funny, I was on a podcast last night live. It was Courtney Harden's podcast called The Real Deal, and he asked me who my dream podcast guest would be, and I gave him a handful of names, but one of them being Paige Beckers, and then I saw that she was announced to be on the Unrivaled League, and I was so excited. That's gonna be super fun to watch, and I am really looking forward to it. But I'm also looking forward to you guys meeting my incredible guest this week. Her name is Tamar Sher. Not only is she an IU grad, but I look up to her so much. And I actually have a little bit of a funny story about Tamar. Tamar is now down in St. Louis, Missouri. She's a sports reporter and anchor for KMOV-TV. But I actually met Tamar when I was in high school. I was a senior in high school, and I came down here to Bloomington for the media school direct admit day. And Tamar spoke about her experience as a sports broadcaster, learning sports media here at IU. And it was so inspiring. And she's honestly a really big part of why I chose to pursue this today. So it was a really special interview for me and just a great conversation. We talked about her experiences here at the media school, her first job post-grad. She worked up in Evansville, Indiana as a sports director and reporter as well. So it was just really cool to hear about her experiences because, like I always say, everyone's journey and path is different, and it's always just super exciting and cool for me as a student still to learn about, and also for you guys. So I cannot wait for you guys to meet Tamar. She is fabulous. Follow her on everything, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode, and I also can't wait to make more here in Bloomington. Hi everyone, welcome back to Fierce in the Field. I have one of my all-time favorite people on the call today. I have Tamar Sher. She's going to be sharing a little bit about herself and her job and what she does in the industry. So if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Tamar Sher. We have so much in common. We not only are both in the sports media field, sports broadcasting, but also we both went to Indiana University, which is where I found my love for sports media. So from St. Louis, Missouri, right now working as a local sports anchor and reporter here in St. Louis. So I'm living out the dream early in my career, getting to be home, covering my hometown teams, but it's just been a whirlwind. I graduated from IU in 2021. So just been an incredible first 4 years of the career so far.
Yeah, we were also in the same sorority, which I think is so
right.
random. Yeah. I remember finding that out and I was like, oh my God, Tamar was an AKO. That's insane.
But to be honest, what was funny about it, I had no idea what AKO was going into the rush process. And, you know, at IU, it's really bizarre because it's freezing cold. You're walking around basically in the tundra, figuring out, okay, who do I connect with from 3-minute conversations? It's a really cool experience, but it's weird. I had no idea what AKO was. When I got in them, there were so many people who were in the broadcasting field that I didn't realize. So it was me, there was a girl ahead of me, there were so many different people or people who wanted to get into it, who were studying sports media. I'm like, okay, maybe we did just gravitate toward each other and this rush process kind of works. So it's kind of cool.
Totally random. And mine was like a lot of girls in my PC are in the media school. Like we're all spread out major wise, but we're all like in media, which I think is cool. So I was like, okay, because I feel like a lot of times at IU, it was like all business majors that you were surrounded by.
Of course, you got the Kelley School of Business literally at your fingertips and a block away. So it makes sense. But when you look at what the media school has turned into the last 10, 15 years, it's unbelievable. I remember I was in high school, and Tom Ackerman, who is not only a leader here in the St. Louis sports scene and sports radio at KMOX, flagship station for the Cardinals, but he also is a proud IU alum. So he actually gave me my first tour of the media school before it was even built. He said, you got to come here. You got the beautiful structure and just envision what this could be like. The studio wasn't even built. And I walk in, I'm like, all right, set, done, sold. I'm going to IU. And my story goes well beyond just that one visit. I grew up an IU fan because both my parents went there. So I knew I was going to go there. But once I saw that media school, I knew from then on, okay, this is what my major is going to be.
Yeah, like you were like, oh, this is the spot for me. Now I know for sure that IU was the right choice.
Totally. Because yes, you got the Kelly School of Business, but just to see the growth that this program in the media school has had over the last, like I said, 10, 15 years, it's unbelievable in the amount of students that continue to go and make that a target destination, competing with schools like Syracuse and Northwestern and Maryland, those that are known for their journalism programs. Yes, we have the Ernie Pyle School, but now the media school building media and journalism together, it's just amazing what's grown.
It's amazing. That's because when I toured IU, I think I met you. You spoke at our like media school admit day, but I didn't know for sure that day that I was going to IU. I thought I had all these schools. I applied to like SMU and Dallas and LMU and LA. Like I was all around the map, and my parents were like, I'm from Chicago. So they're like, IU's hop and a skip away. Like you have to go check it out. Applied to the media school, didn't know for sure I wanted to do broadcasting, had like no idea what I wanted to do. And then I walked in, I saw it, I met Galen, I met you, and I was like, this is where I'm going to go. I decided, I think, in that car ride home that day. So it's something about that atmosphere and also the people that are there and how passionate the students are that really make it.
Okay, like I have the chills. That's
Really?
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
that's the whole point, because you being able to hear from a former student who understands what the process is like and knows that it's a scary process to choose where you want to go to school. You want to make the right decision. You're putting all this pressure on yourself, but to know that you got that feeling and that warmth just from one day of looking. And first of all, Bloomington's gorgeous and the campus is amazing. So you walk onto campus and it's a completely different feeling than when you're just looking at it online. But to know that you felt that way when you walked into the school and heard everything that we had to offer, I love it.
No, it really was like so crazy because I did not, like if you told me when I was 16, 17 years old that I was going to IU, I'd be so confused. I'd be like, really? IU? I grew up in a Tennessee family. So my whole family
Wow.
went to Tennessee, big Tennessee fans, probably would have assumed I would have gone there. My sister goes there now. So IU wasn't even on my radar until I did that visit. So it's really crazy how things like that happen.
But look at what you got out of this IU football program right now. You're there at a great time, my friend.
I'm ecstatic for football season. Like literally cannot wait. It's just so insane. Like we were there to be a part of history and just like witness that and be a student at that time. And even like someone who graduated being able to see that, you must be so proud of the entire team.
Yeah, the team and also just what the school is known for. I think that you never, like for me, for example, I always grew up going to Bloomington, going to IU basketball games. My dad told me my first words were Bobby Knight. I believed him until I was like 10 years old. I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. How can those be my first words? But that's just the passion that we had for IU basketball. So yes, long history with IU football, but now we're going to be able to say in 20 years, 30 years from now, we were there when SIG led this program to a place that it's never been before, and it's only going to keep growing. And I'm just so excited to see what comes this season and how they continue to grow.
I'm so excited. I'm crossing my fingers that everything goes well this season. I'm sure it will. But yeah, I'm just so excited. And I love that. Like we get to share that Hoosier spirit. It's awesome.
Totally.
Okay, I want to go back to like the very beginning. You were a kid, you grew up an IU fan. How were sports a part of your life? Was that something that you always wanted to pursue? Did you play sports as a kid?
So it was definitely a thing in my family that you have to be part of a team. I have two younger brothers, so I was the oldest in the family, and my dad was always our coach. So he was like, you have to figure out, even if you're not the best on the team, you have to feel what it's like being part of a team, because that was something just ingrained from us early on. He knew it was important to him when he was growing up, just a big part of child development. So I was on basically every team imaginable. In high school, I played lacrosse, I played basketball. Again, was not the best athlete on the field, but I was just so ingrained and passionate with just being part of that atmosphere. And then I was the editor in chief for our yearbook my senior year of high school. So I'm like, okay, I know journalism in the bag. I know I love sports. Great. So then IU being part of that, I grew up going to IU basketball camps because my brothers would participate in Kelvin Sampson's basketball camp and Tom Crean's basketball camp. So that was really cool because I would be on campus like when I was little. Then I grew up, of course, going to IU basketball games and feeling the atmosphere just as a kid. And so for me, I knew that I was passionate. I grew up going to Cardinals games, Blues games, and just feeling that just that was part of our weekends. It was part of our lifestyle here in St. Louis. And when you talk to people from St. Louis, it's kind of the same across the board, is that you knew what you were doing. It's summer, it's gorgeous out, you're going to get some Dippin' Dots, you're going to go sit out at a Cardinals game and you're going to watch your team because that was just what you did. And same thing with the Blues. So that being said, when I went to IU, I actually sat in the, when you were getting started and you're entering freshman, like, okay, even if you don't know what you want your major to be, you just have to declare a major. So write it down on a little slip of paper, like what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm like looking around, I know I want to be in the media school. And then I'm like, okay, I want to obviously, okay, love sports, love media, already got that start with the yearbook. And I said, all right, like I want to be in sports media. I want to tell stories and I want to be part of a team, even if I can't physically play. So that was just my journey into how I got to this lovely career that I'm in today. But it really did start from just the way that I was raised and knowing that I wanted to be part of a team always.
Yeah, I was similar because I also was not the best athlete ever. In fact, like was not athletic, but still did the volleyball team in middle school and did the basketball team and did dance and did like a dance team for a little bit. So kind of learned what it was like to be a part of something. And then that kind of was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, how is it like for actual, professional athletes, collegiate athletes, like wanting to tell those stories is something so special. And I was drawn to that major for the similar reason. So it's funny you say that. So something special about the game and the people that I think makes it really awesome.
Totally. And I think too, you have to have just a passion for being around not only the atmosphere, but a passion for learning people's stories, because at the end of the day, sports journalism is journalism. It's the same thing, goes hand in hand. And I was really intrigued by getting, and I have been since I was little, but just getting to know people and making it bigger than the actual game. So getting to dive in, tell stories, find out the inspiration behind why some of these women and men play and what they do and how they've made a career out of it and how it's going to, create their life moving forward. So that was something too that I was really, really interested in. So it was just beyond the game. It was the actual storytelling aspects of finding out and just really getting to talk to people and say, what makes you tick? What makes you you?
Yeah, exactly. I know we touched on this story a little bit beforehand, but you toured the media school for the first time with Tom, which is so awesome. If you want to tell that story, because I think that's super special.
Yeah, so essentially, I already knew I loved the campus. I have been on the campus many, many times before. I believe I was a junior in college. So I was navigating the space of, okay, where do I want to go? I actually toured a couple schools on the East Coast. I went and toured GW in Maryland because I'm like, oh, maybe I'd want a city school or a state school that's close to a bigger city. We'll figure that out. And then I ended up going to IU with Tom and my parents. And we were just wanting to walk around, be on the campus. We set up this tour of the media school. And essentially, like I said, it was bare bones. There was no studio to look at. We didn't have the beautiful infrastructure that the media school has right now. It was just that beautiful library, former library, but the guts were being repaired. So when I walked in, I only could see what people were telling me the vision was. And Tom was someone, obviously I looked up to him, when I was growing up here in St. Louis, because he was the voice. He's the voice on the radio, and he was one of my close friends as well. I was able to actually babysit his daughters when I was in high school. So that was the connection that we had there. So then I was obviously super connected to his family, but just looked up to him. He was an incredible mentor. And so, yes, he gave me that first tour. He showed me the possibilities of what it could be. And it's an intimidating career to get started in, because you don't know where you're going to begin. You don't know how to start, especially in high school. There's not those opportunities. There are at some schools like Carmel High School in Indianapolis. But that being said, I didn't really know what could be. And he showed me, along with the dean at the time, Dean Jim Shanahan. He was amazing to just explain all the different opportunities available. And Galen Clavia, like, these are just people that are instrumental in the growth of students, which I found super important, and which is why I ultimately went to IU, because I made these instant connections with these people who I'm like, oh wait, they care so much about their students, and they are going to see it through. They are going to see how they can help their students achieve the goals they wanted. I set goals, and now here we are. But what's interesting, it comes full circle that Tom and I were sitting at Nick's my senior year, and I had just gotten my first offer to work in the industry, and it was as a sports director for a local station in Evansville, Indiana, just an hour and a half south of Bloomington. And I sat there at Nick's, and I'm like, it's a really good opportunity. I had a couple phone calls with this news director. I feel like it's too good to be true, almost a sports director right out of college. And he looks at me, you got to take it. You absolutely have to take it. You're 2.5 hours from St. Louis. You're super close to Bloomington. How do you not take that job? He told me to take it. I took it, and here we are today.
I think when I toured IU, it was the only school where I actually had professors and people come up to me and talk to me and ask me what I wanted to do. Like, it's just something about the community in Bloomington is so special and so supportive.
Totally.
And the fact that you made your first professional job decision with someone that kind of helped you figure out that Bloomington was your home is so special and so full circle.
And it was just an exciting time. It was because you build that trust with people. And to your point, when you were touring and you were able to meet different professors and different students who are so passionate about it, that just gets you more excited and gets you more passionate about wanting to be there in the space and trusting the process. Because that's the biggest thing. If you trust the process, but you also put your nose down and grind it out and work really hard, that's the big thing too. Because Galen could tell us all that we need to know, but do you apply that information? If you're sitting in the classroom and professors are telling you, okay, here's what you need to do to succeed, who are going to be the ones to actually do it? You created a podcast. You're actually doing something for your career in the summertime. Like that, those are things that they want to see, that it's beyond the classroom. It's what you do with it and what you do with that information.
Oh yeah, it's the workout side of it, which is also, I think, what really made me love sports broadcasting as a career, because I'm a journalism major. I'm not sports media. So I was learning about writing, and I was taking the news classes, and I was doing all of that. And I was like, okay, like this is cool for my classes. But then it was actually being a part of IUS-TV and getting to do Big Ten Student U, where I was like, this is literally what I want to do for my career. And I think it's so special that IU has that to offer, because when we're sidelining for Big Ten Plus, that's what we actually want to do. That's what we'll someday get a job in. And I think that's what makes it also equally as special, which is awesome.
Totally. I remember, stepping in, and I'm sure you felt the same way, but there are so many opportunities at Indiana. It can be kind of overwhelming of, what do I get involved in? What is going to set me up for success? So I got involved in everything from IUS TV to IDS. I even tried out for a second to see if I wanted to write, not knowing if I was wanting to be on TV yet. And then actually I was the first woman to be on the Hoosier Network. So that was
read that. And I was going to ask you about that. Okay. I want to tell me about that story. Like walking in to IU for the first time, you find out what the Hoosier Net is. Cause I know that was a student club first before it was an actual organization. So talk to me about that. That's awesome.
Well, how it kind of happened for me is that I was getting involved in everything. Like I said, I was involved in iOS TV. So I knew then that I wanted to get into the broadcasting on camera side of things. And I had multiple discussions with Dr. Clavio, our friend Galen. And I was just always wanting to do more, push to do more, and get some opportunities, get reps. And he was kind of the mastermind with the students who were at IU at the time with me, who were a couple years older, of the Hoosier Network, and wanting to create a space that was more of a digital platform that resonated with the generation that we were in, because we had these platforms, but this was something new and emerging that was similar to what was out there on social media and building that brand. So I started the podcast, which is why it's so special that we get to do this podcast together today. I started a podcast, Let's Get Real, and it was highlighting especially women in sports and their journey, whether it be coaches, other broadcasters, athletes, anyone who had a story to tell. I wanted to find a platform to create that. So I had that on the Hoosier Network, and I did different, reports from games, post game, and worked on my interviewing skills, worked on my recap and wrap package skills. So the Hoosier Network was just a nice community that I was able to build, and they asked me to join, and I was like, absolutely, how can I not? And I just got to learn from other students who were really advanced in the sports media program and who I felt like I could learn from. So it was like a really good opportunity, not only for me to be mentored by other students and to continue to learn from Galen, but it allowed me to exercise skills in a different way. So that is just the home that I found among the many, many opportunities that IU had to offer.
Yeah. How did you navigate? Because I think, at least for me, when I was a freshman, I was really excited, but I was also really scared because I was like, oh, I'm joining these clubs with all of these super talented upperclassmen. And it is a male dominated program and industry, which obviously it's grown and we're seeing so many women pursue this, but it's definitely hard and it can be intimidating. How did you handle those nerves your first year?
So you have to give yourself grace. And I'm going to tell you a story about my first years just trying to break in. Of course, you have all these classes to teach you how to use specific software to edit what we call a package, where we're creating a story through our editing software. And you're filming everything yourself, you're writing everything yourself, you're on camera. Basically, literally everything that I do today as a multimedia journalist, anchor, reporter, doing it all here in St. Louis. But as a student, it's intimidating because you just get thrown into it. And yes, you learn the proper skills from class, but then when you actually have to apply it, it can be intimidating. So one of my first stories, actually, it was my first story I ever had to do. So recap, and I can't recall what game it actually was. I think it was an IU women's basketball game. I'm not kidding you. That package took me about 3 to 4 hours to figure out how to edit this 1.5 minute package together. And I was so nervous. And it was just because it was so foreign and new, and I was doing it kind of by myself, because that's the only way that you can fully learn, is just go out there, get your computer, and do it. Now I'm editing one of those packages in literally 20 minutes, 30 minutes here in St. Louis. And I'm doing that on a day-to-day basis. But that's somewhere you just have to start. And I remember getting so frustrated and like, oh, is this really for me? It's like, no, you have to keep powering forward and doing what's hard and leaning into it to be able to get to where you are and to get to your ultimate goal, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's so funny you said that because I have the most vivid memory of me sitting in my dorm room by myself, like verge of tears, trying to figure out Premiere Pro for the first time because this is like September of freshman year. I didn't learn how to do this yet. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm calling my dad because he knows a little bit about Premiere. it was a women's soccer package, and I had this little stand up at the end. It was my first stand up ever, and it probably took me the entire night. Like, I think I probably stayed up until like 3 a.m. to put this package together, because I'm like, I can't, disappoint these two seniors that are the directors. Like, this needs to be perfect. And it was so frustrating. And I was like, is this for me? Like, can I do this? And now, like you said, it's like second nature, but it's so scary because they put so much trust in you with so little experience. And I'm like, oh my God, it's insane.
How else are you going to learn if you don't just do it?
Exactly.
And that's the point. And that's what's so special about Indiana is you have every tool at your fingertips to say, hey, you want a camera? You get a mic. You want to learn how to set up lights and actually make the shot look good and then go back and edit it. We have all of the tools at your disposal, but now what do you do with it? And that's the biggest thing. And that's because I've had many conversations with students who, like yourself, still going through the program or who have graduated and are asking me questions. And my biggest piece of advice is I tell them, use what you have. When you're at Indiana and you have all of these things at your fingertips, it's genuinely about putting in the work, grinding, and doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So you can figure it out.
Also knowing that sometimes you're going to make things and it's not going to look that good. You're going to mess up. My first package, not good. Did not, was not my best work at all. But you have to kind of learn from those moments and be like, all right, these are stepping stones to actually get to where I want to be, which is important. So like you said, give yourself grace.
Totally. And like you say, you learn from people. Tricia Whitaker, who is an adjunct professor at Indiana, and of course, she is an Apple TV baseball sideline reporter, was the Rays sideline reporter for a while, and worked her way up through starting with local TV. So that was someone who, when I was going through school, and she's still doing this for students today, but when I was going through school, it was someone I could look up to. And she gave me that honest advice of, I was where you are. And now look at what I've done. And here's how I did it. And not copying her path, but trying to mimic, the success that she has had over the years, because clearly she did the right things. She continued on her path and found her niche and found her specialty. So that being said, you have to start somewhere, but it's about starting it. It's about trusting yourself and then continuing to just chase your dreams.
Yeah. So important to realize that everyone starts somewhere and everyone was where you are. You're not alone. People understand what you're going through. People understand what you're doing. When you were at IU, and I know we talked about the Hoosier Net, how much that program meant to you, did you have like an aha moment, whether you were on camera, whether you put together a really cool story where you were like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my career?
What's interesting is I kind of decided that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my career when I declared. So even though they said, no pressure, you can declare whatever major you want, just put something on this piece of paper and sitting there before your freshman year even begins. When I committed to getting involved in sports media, I just kind of took it and ran with it. And my friends in AKO will tell you there were many parties that I had to miss. There were many nights with friends that I chose to be in the press conference room at Assembly Hall and making sure that I was interviewing Brenna Wise and Allie Papberg with the IU women's basketball team and fostering those relationships, because that was important to me. And it's something that I loved. Even my senior year of college. So my college experience was interesting because it was during COVID and my senior year was very strict, but still I got an internship my second semester senior year in Indianapolis at Wish TV. That being said, I was driving 3 days a week to Indianapolis instead of being at college and being able to be with my people in Bloomington for my final semester. And that was something that I really wanted to do. I had zero regrets. I loved every moment of it. It made me feel that I made it because I was in this space that I knew one day soon I would be in. And that really set me up for my career as well. So it was IU, but then that led me into that great internship. And I found myself choosing the career path every single day from that moment that I declared on that little piece of paper that I wanted to be in sports media.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like now thinking thinking about how many things I've missed, how many things I've like sacrificed. There's so many, and it's hard because I have very close friends who understand what I'm doing, but at the same time, they're probably like, God, she's always working. She's always on the road. She's always doing something. But I think that's why it's important to connect with people who are in the same career path as you, because you get it. It's important. But I want to hear about your internship experience a little bit more. How were you able to land that internship with Wish TV? What was that process like for you? Because I know internship experience is different for everyone.
Yeah, and to be honest, it took a second. So it was a different time because it was COVID, and I was abroad. I was actually in Florence, Italy when COVID hit, I will say. And so it trickled from Milan into Florence. Like, yeah, you should probably go back home before the borders close and you can't go home. And so I was like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Parents were like, yeah, you're coming home right now. But it was like I was trying to find an internship for that junior year summer. That's when they say, oh, get an internship your junior year. Obviously, that didn't happen. So then it came into my senior year, and Wish was always on my radar because there had been so many people within the sports media program who did go through that program. And it was super helpful because it was very hands-on. I didn't operate a camera or anything, but they taught me the editing software. They taught me how to cut highlights. Like I wrote highlights. And of course the anchors at the time read through them and re-edited them, but they still gave me the opportunity to play and with professional teams. Now I wasn't able to be in any of the spaces because it was COVID, but that was the year that March Madness was in the bubble in Indianapolis. So that was a unique experience to just be in that space and learning from people. But it was a full-on interview process when I got it. And there were several other interns with me at the time. But it was just neat to be able to go out and see what the reporters do on a daily basis and feeling like you're on deadline and understanding what that means, because that's something that it's hard to mimic. But it was nice to be able to watch others do that. And I will tell you, the one experience I did have before this Wish TV internship that was extremely helpful to me was, so I grew up a summer camp counselor, and that was like my job before my actual career began. And one of the opportunities I got was being a summer camp counselor for this all boys sports camp called Winnidoo. And it's in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So clearly I'm from St. Louis. It's a far away, it's away from home.
Oh, yeah.
But I said, you know what? What enticed me about it was I was going to be their sports broadcasting counselor, teaching these young kids about broadcasting and just kind of allowing them to test out different like mics and calling highlights and all, or calling games and all that stuff. And then also I got to be mentored by Tracy Wolfson, the lead CBS sideline reporter for the NFL and NCAA basketball. So she was there because her kids all go to this camp. And she had a couple of days where she would be this sports broadcasting counselor with me and teaching the kids. And the kids all, of course, loved her and loved learning. But I really took hold of that and was able to chat with her, hear from her experience, someone who has done so much in her career. And what's incredible is that when I was at my internship at Wish TV, I kept that relationship with Tracy, and she was the reporter for March Madness. So I went on a walk with her during that time. Of course, it's outside. We all masked up. It was a bubble at that time, but I got to see her while she was doing that gig. Then fast forward, I go to the Super Bowl with KMOV with the Chiefs. Tracy's there. She's the sideline reporter. So I got to interview her and chat with her before. And it's all in this industry. All this industry is about is building relationships, whether it's with people that you're covering, people in the industry, fostering those relationships, keeping them and actually making them meaningful is so important in this industry. And that's just one example of many that I found in my career that made me have that aha moment of, these are people who want to, and I want to do the same. I want to give back as well and help mentor those that are coming through the industry like you, of wanting to get in. That's what this is about. We're friends in this business. While it's competitive and there's a lot going on and a lot of components, it's important to build those strong relationships and connections with people, because that's what helps make this industry go round every day.
That is the craziest, most awesome story I've ever heard. Like, that is the fact that that came out of a summer camp counseling job is crazy. Was that your junior year of college? When did you, or before Wish?
So that was before junior year.
Okay.
Because so that was like a sophomore year going into junior year is
Okay.
when it was. And so it was that summer that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go be part of this community, because that's what the summer camp's about too. It's building a new community. So I'm meeting people from, actually it was all across the world counselors are from. So I made all of these friends, but then really used it as an opportunity to meet and connect with people. And I'm still connected to them till this day, and doing whatever I can to help out and help promote when they need more sports broadcasting counselors. But that Tracy connection only blossomed because not only was she willing to connect with the young aspiring journalist, but I was willing to keep that relationship going too. So relationships go both ways. And I think that's a really good example of when you connect with someone and you really find that relationship, it's important to continue those and to continue building off of that, because you don't know what you can learn from each other until you actually open yourself up and are willing to connect. And that was something I've always been passionate about in this industry, what this industry allows you to do. But it was really neat that she was willing to be open and teach a young aspiring broadcaster like myself.
Yeah, we were just talking before this about Taylor, about just meeting kind people in the industry who are so open and willing to help. And that, like, again, like, that's what makes it so special. That's, oh my gosh, I love that story. You have never heard that. That's insane.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about your first job out of college, because I know it's COVID. I know you've told me this before. You met over a Zoom call, Anne's class. If you want to kind of walk us through that story, because I think it's pretty cool.
Totally. So, and here's on being willing to be open-minded, because you never know when you put yourself out there. And this is in any career. If you put yourself out there, you're authentically you never know where it's going to take you. Anne one of our professors set up a Zoom call with a bunch of Gray news directors around the country. So Gray Media is one of the largest owners of television stations, local TV around the country. So I get on, and I was set up, I believe, to talk to the news director at Louisville. And basically I just had the platform to ask him a bunch of questions. But before we broke off into our little groups, and this wasn't an interview by any means, this is just, hey, news directors want to meet with students from Indiana. We broke off into before we broke off into the groups, we were in this big Zoom. And we were able to just ask any questions we wanted. And I raised my hand. I'm like, so I'm from St. Louis, and I know that is a high market to achieve in your first job coming out of college. But what advice do you have for a young aspiring journalist when they're moving to a new city that they might not know, knowing that I am not going to be able necessarily to start right away in St. Louis? I want to get experience before hitting a market of that size. And it was interesting because on that call was the news director from Evansville, Indiana. He immediately unmutes himself and says, hey, well, if you want to move halfway home in between Bloomington and St. Louis, we have a position open at WFIE in Evansville, Indiana. And I'm laughing like, oh, haha, like, that's hilarious. Like, thanks for thinking of me. But I didn't think that he was being serious.
Right.
So then later he gets my contact information from Anne, telling her that he was so impressed with just the way that I presented myself and being open to asking the question. And I was the first person to ask the question. And so 3 calls later, he's offering me a job. And it was about, I sent him all my reel and information, but it wasn't until after that first Zoom call where he wanted to meet with me. And I found that really interesting because he was doing it based off personality and voice and confidence. And I think that's something that you put yourself out there and you never know who you're around. You never know who's going to take hold of you and your personality. And you never know where that could lead into an opportunity. So from that day, moving forward, I became a sports director in Evansville, Indiana. I was there for a year and a half. And that was when my news director, along with my general manager at the time, was like, hey, do you want to move to St. Louis? There's a position opening at your hometown market in the Gray Station in St. Louis. So it was that easy transition. And from there, the rest is history. And now here I am. But that was really cool to be able to say that by just raising my hand and asking a question and saying, hey, what is that transition like when you move to a market away from your family, away from your people, how to build that transition into something magical? And that's exactly what I ended up doing.
That's so full circle because you did end up coming back to St. Louis, which is
Yes.
so crazy. Oh, I just love, like, it's very much like everything happens for a reason because you got on this call. You're probably not, I wouldn't have been expecting to get a job out of the call. It's COVID, you're just asking questions. And great talent. It's interesting because it's news and then it's like a little bit of sports. So it's hard to kind of find that happy medium. So that's really cool. What was something that you learned from that first job that you still kind of go back to this day that you're like, oh, that one thing that I learned or that one moment that I had that just helps you today as a reporter?
That's a great question. I think that so what was interesting was that I was the sports director coming right out of college. And so it was me, and we had one other reporter who had been there for years and years and years. And so working together, we had to just figure out what our working environments and styles were, how we can work together, building off of what was already there. So something that I did as a sports director when I went to Evansville was I said, okay, we could create a high school football and a high school basketball show. Like we can make this something bigger than what it is, because we had our just normal sports casts and we got a lot of highlights mushed into that whatever allotted 3 minutes that we had. But I said, what if we did something beyond the field, beyond the court? So saying, let's bring in two opposing head coaches right before they were going to kick off in their first game of the season, because high school football was massive in Evansville. And that was something we did. We made this program called In the Huddle. I think it was a 30-minute segment. And it was basically highlighting and previewing all of like the big rivalry matchups of the week and bringing in those head coaches to have honest conversations about how they're prepping and how they go about their day, go about their business, get to learn a little bit more about them. And so I think Evansville giving me that ability and platform to create is something that I've carried over in my next job, and just also being able to go deep and find really important and meaningful stories, because that's what it's all about, finding that athlete who grew up wanting to play baseball. He gets drafted out of high school and now he's literally in the MLB, Colson Montgomery, making his MLB debut just weeks ago with the Chicago White Sox. But I got to see that progression happen because I saw him get drafted in Evansville. And then now 4 years later, I'm seeing what it's turned into. So it's being willing to dive in, meet people, build those relationships to then see where that grows and takes you. That's something that I learned when I was getting my start in the career.
That's awesome. That's a really cool thing to look back on and think about, like, wow, like because of that job that I worked in Evansville as sports director, I got to see his growth and I got to see him as an athlete. And he was so young the first time you got to learn about him and meet him and see him and now draft the White Sox. Like, I think that's really something special that we don't realize in the moment. And then once something like that hits, you're like, oh, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's no story is too small. When you are meeting people in communities and when you're finding special stories, everything has purpose and meaning because you have to take yourself in. Even though I didn't grow up in the Evansville community, I fully immersed myself in the community so that I could tell these stories and feel these stories and feel the empathy with it so that I could do my job in the best way possible. And that's something that you have to learn. Yes, I'm here in my hometown of St. Louis, but I think it's so important to bring yourself into the homes of people who care about the community and care about the city because that's where you're going to find the best stories. And that's where you're going to be able to get to know people, build those relationships, and then be able to do your job in the best effective way.
Yeah. What was challenging about that job? Because you're coming in as sports director right out of college. I know that, again, like we've talked about, the nerves and giving yourself grace, but you're in a professional setting. Was there something that really challenged you at first, but then you really got out of your comfort zone and you were able to learn from it?
I think I would have had a great answer for you probably like 3 years ago. I'm like when it was at the forefront of my brain
Yeah.
because there were definitely challenges. This is actually something that I realized. I had never shot highlights of a football game before going to my first market. And I remember being on the sidelines. I think it was at Wrights High School, which is a gorgeous stadium in Evansville. They have a lot of amazing high school football stadiums, which was so fun to be in that scene, Friday Night Lights esque. And that being said, I remember I had my camera. I had shot soccer before. I'd shot basketball many, many times. So I got that. But at IU, I never got the opportunity to shoot football because at the time, my senior year being COVID, it kind of messed with things. So I was able to shoot in Evansville, and it was definitely a learning curve. It's like, oh my goodness, I am being thrown into the fire and I've never done this before. So I did a lot of prep work and just a lot of like watching highlights, watching film, studying the game. I remember coming home to St. Louis one weekend because I worked a Monday through Friday, which is not normal in this business. But I remember coming home one weekend and my dad's friend was a coach and he literally sat with me for like 4 hours watching film and just really diving into the nuts and bolts because I was heading into football season and I wanted to like really understand the reporter side of it. Of course, I've watched as a fan, but it's different when you're a reporter and it's different of when you talk to coaches and how you talk to coaches and what you're listening for and just all the nitty gritty. So that's something that I had to lean into and be like, okay, not super comfortable with this yet, but I'm willing to learn. And so now I'm shooting football highlights all the time. And I go to Mizzou football games. We have a partnership with Mizzou here in St. Louis. So we're doing pre and post game shows for them. And I'm on those sidelines and I'm getting every single play and I'm following the ball and I'm making sure that those highlights are great. So that being said, that's definitely something I think I learned in my first market.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's scary. Like, oh, I've never fully reported on this sport before, or I've never actually shot this sport before. And then throwing yourself into the fire, learning about it, talking to coaches, getting to talk to players. I mean, that's how you learn. We said that. That's kind of what makes it.
It's how you learn and it's the prep work you do beforehand too.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
walking in, knowing kind of what the environment looks like. You have to throw yourself in, but it's being knowledgeable and prepped and knowing that you've done enough work beforehand to accomplish what you're set out to do.
Yeah. Going back to St. Louis, you get the job at KMOV. Walk me through that moment of finding out, oh my gosh, I'm going back home. I'm going back to my home city.
It was something that you never really know is going to happen in your career. It's something I talk about with my friends in the industry today, that it's hard to get home. That's a rarity. It has to be right place, right time. There happened to be an opening at the Gray Media Station here in St. Louis when I was working in Evansville, and it just so happened that they liked my reel and we met. I remember going to my first interview with my news director and my general manager, and I was meeting everyone. And basically, I walked into a situation where I'm like, yes, these are my hometown teams. Yes, I grew up watching the Cardinals, the Blues. But to me, I understand the assignment that you can't be the cheerleader. You have to be the objective journalist. And while that is it could be a hard transition to make, it was easy for me because I immediately felt comfortable in the space, but I had to like look at it and challenge myself to look at it from a different lens of journalistic reporting. And so when I walked in, that was the first question that my news director gave me. He was like, "Well, if you come here, are you going to be able to do that? Are you going to go up to Adam Wainwright in the locker room and fangirl? Like what's your reaction going to be when you see these players that you've grown up watching your entire life?" And I go, "No, I understand that it's a job, and I understand that I can look at these athletes as human beings and also as people that I'm covering." So to me, it almost made me feel better because I was comfortable in the space already, knowing, okay, I already know the lays of the land of Busch Stadium from a fan perspective. Now I'm going to kind of channel my brain into doing it from a reporting perspective. But I was able to have mentors who walked me through that space to make it not as intimidating. And I made sure to just go do it. And clearly, my news director trusted that I wasn't going to go in there and fangirl, that I actually did understand what it meant to be a journalist, to be in the space, even if it was my hometown.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so special and awesome that you were able to do that. Were there any challenges that came from it? I know we've talked a little bit about that, but you're in your hometown and you're adjusting to the space, but you're now a reporter. What obviously it's so great, but what challenge came with that? Because I feel like there's a little bit of a hurdle that you have to get past too.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it already, that it was basically the perception almost of like, okay, can you do this while also knowing that these are the teams that you grew up watching from being a kid and moving on. I think that that was the hurdle at first, just of the perception of that being the case. But and being also, the young woman who's in the industry now and is new and is trying to build relationships. And I think what you think it could be something that is like a hurdle or something that can be difficult, you turn that into something beautiful. And I, was very honest to saying, okay, yeah, this is my first time in a professional clubhouse. Tell me what I don't know. So before just walking in there, pretending like I knew everything that I did not know, I found my people to say, all right, tell me what I don't know. How can I enter this space in a good way, knowing that I'm new to this space? And honestly, Cardinals manager Ollie Marmol made my life easier for me. He recognized that I'm new in the industry. I still felt like I had a voice and a platform to ask him questions and to get my job done. And I never felt slighted. And that's an intimidating space, being part of a major league clubhouse. It could be, but if you don't make it that way and you start building these relationships, you shake people's hands, you say, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Tamar Sher. Here's who I work for. And you humanize people. That's what makes the job easy at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, these are all humans that you're interviewing and talking to. So that is something that I made a point of shaking hands and introducing myself, and then being willing to make those relationships. I went to spring training my first year on the job too. And that's when you really make your relationships with Major League Baseball teams, because things are a little more relaxed and you go And so that was an opportunity too for me to meet people. But I do give a lot of credit to not only the mentors in the clubhouse that I found, but also the athletes and the manager and those people who did make me feel like I belonged in the space. And that's something that can be intimidating, but I felt immediately comfortable in.
What about because I know you also work with SLU as a sideline reporter. Talk to me about that gig a little bit. How are you able to land that? How do you balance both? Because I know sometimes it's hard switching between sports, switching between different skills, like anchoring compared to sideline reporting. It's very similar, but it's also very different at the same time.
So the only other experience I'd had as a sideline reporter was the Big Ten Network Student U stuff that we would do in college. And I didn't get to do that in my senior year because of COVID. So that being said, I definitely enjoyed it. I do live hits all the time for my job. So I knew that I was comfortable being live on camera. It's just different, like you said, when it's in a live game atmosphere. So the funny thing, actually, how I got my job as the sideline reporter was very similar to how I got my job in Evansville. And I was in the press room for the Cardinals, and I'm just being myself and just going about my day, setting up my camera for post game and making sure all my audio levels are good. And there was a day that the sideline reporter for the Cardinals, it's raining, he needs an umbrella. Immediately, I go up to one of the people who he works with, Aaron. He works in the audio department, and he needed an umbrella, and I immediately gave him mine. I'm like, here you go. Like, hey, happy to help anytime. Just let me know. And then we started developing a friendship from there. And he actually told the producer and director for the Cardinals, hey, like, there's this reporter, Tamar. Here's her goals. She wants to be a sideline reporter. Maybe like this would be an awesome opportunity for her, because the Cardinals director and producer also produced the SLU games. So just by me like being authentically me and building a relationship with someone helped me then get my opportunity with SLU. And I did that. Now, that was a challenging gig because, like I mentioned with football, yeah, okay, I've done the highlights and the recap packages for basketball. Like I know how to do that. But now in live game atmospheres, you're listening into the coach and figuring out what to say, and you're going to practices beforehand, and you're making sure you're getting all the nuggets possible and you're as prepared as possible. I remember just getting there 3-4 hours early and just like grinding and doing my work and making sure I had a nugget about every single player. But it was a different space than I'd ever been in before, but it was amazing. And it's definitely something that I crave. I love the live game atmosphere.
Same. There's something so exciting about it. And like you're getting the adrenaline rush for sure. And like nerves are definitely there. Like 5 seconds before you're about to do a hit, my heart is like in my stomach.
Yeah.
However, I feel like that's kind of what I love about it because it's so exciting.
Yeah, and it'll get better over time. I definitely still have those butterflies. I told you yesterday or earlier before the call, but yesterday was part of MLB trade deadline, 24 hours before the deadline, and I was there doing a live hit, and I'm not kidding you, like 5 minutes before I was supposed to go live on information, one of our closers, Ryan Helsley, the all-star closer for the Cardinals, it was released by Jeff Passan that he was finalizing a deal to be acquired by the Mets. So immediately, you have that adrenaline rush and you're in it and you want to convey the information correctly, concise. And it was one of those moments that it's like, this is like what reporters dream of, is having those breaking news moments and having those moments of adrenaline where you're just getting out information and just making sure it's right and concise. And so I had that moment literally yesterday. And it is something that I felt that heart in my stomach moment, but that's what I live for. And I actually felt like I did better in those live hits than when I spent all this time preparing. It's like, okay, what can you do when you have moments like getting information 10 minutes before you hit and turning it around? And it means I had a really good team behind me as well to make it happen and make it look smooth over the air. But it's being there in those moments and being prepared. So that's something that I just experienced and got a new taste of yesterday. And I'm 4 years into the career.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I just love hearing about it and hearing those stories. I do want to touch on, obviously, Fierce in the Field is about being a woman in the industry and the struggles and the awesomeness that comes from that. You did break into the space early. You got very involved in college. How have you kind of navigated being a female in the space during your collegiate years, and now you're in the professional space? What have you noticed? What has changed? What have you seen?
I think it's about confidence. And I think it's about putting in the work, because it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman in the space, but how much knowledge do you have? How do you build relationships with people? Do people trust you? Those are all things that I've found in my career that I've been able to focus on to advance. And it's not only about building relationships with the people that you are covering, but it's the friendship aspect too. It's being able to lean on people and ask the right questions and not feel like you know it all, because you don't, until you ask the right questions and you find more comfort and confidence in the space. So that's something that at first, I broke into this space. I'm 26 years old, and I'm surrounded by people in the St. Louis market who are much older and more experienced in the space. But I had to learn how to not get intimidated by that and use that as a strength to say, okay, I recognize how long I've been in the industry, but I can still make the same relationships and I can still show up every single day. And yes, you'll have to work harder by showing up and reaching out and making sure that you're fostering good relationships. You have to put in that work. That's how relationships are built and grown and strengthened. But that's something that I was really passionate in doing from my days in college, and it's been translating throughout my career. And that's how I feel like I've gotten to where I am today, just by doing that and honing that skill.
Yeah, I think making those relationships and being a kind person and being vulnerable and asking questions, people will trust you more that way because they're like, oh, she really wants to be here. She really cares about this. And that's really, really important. Do you have, I know we've told a bunch of stories, but do you have a specific story that you can think of where you really did have to prove yourself and you really did have to take that extra mile into a project to think, I'm Tamar, I can do this, and this is why, and this is how?
Honestly, I'm recalling it because it was so recent, but yesterday was an insane example. It's okay. If you think about just what could happen in the days leading up to the MLB trade deadline and being prepared for that, I knew that, okay, I knew our all-star closer, Ryan Helsley, was likely going to be traded. So I thought about that days in advance of saying, okay, I want to make sure I'm there to talk to him and to get some reaction about what it means to him being a Cardinal, because he was drafted in 2015 by the Cardinals. He's the longest tenured Cardinal on the team. He's a guy who's had 2 All-Star appearances. One year, he was playing with guys that he grew up loving, Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, Adam Wainwright. That being said, I knew this is a guy who's really important to this organization. Seeing him go is not going to be easy. And it's not an easy decision, but this is the position that this team is in. So yesterday, when I'm covering just the pregame atmosphere, I'm asking every player, okay, what impact does Helsley have on this team? What has he brought to the organization over the years? Getting all these great answers, preparing that for my live shot. And then when the news breaks that he's finalizing a deal with the Mets, that was a moment I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for this. I already know everything about Helsley because I have it all in my head. I don't have to go off a script with this. I know that I have the soundbite from Ryan that I wanted that is back at my studio. I already prepared that. And even though that adrenaline is rushing through my fingertips, I know the information by heart and I can convey it. So I was able to concisely, cleanly report that the Cardinals are finalizing a deal with the Mets to trade Ryan Housley. And that was something that in your career, you can't, like I said, you cannot practice those moments until they happen to you. And so as a journalist, that was something that really challenged me to not only get the information right and to correctly source who I was getting the reports from, but also being prepared enough to have that information and being aware of what day it was and what the significance was of that day to know how to then go about my reporting for the day. That's the biggest, I think, story challenge that I have had in the recent history. But I think what's also was a challenge when I got into St. Louis that I've kind of grown off of, just not even story wise, but when I got into KMOV, the sports department was just me and one other person. And it was the two of us grinding things out. We had our normal 6 and 10 o'clock sports hits. And then we had Sports Sunday, which is a 10-minute segment on Sunday. Well, when I came in, our general manager said, hey, let's make a sports show on Saturdays. I go, cool. Like, how long? 30 minutes. Great. What do you want it to look like? Oh, I trust you guys. So that was a challenge too, using my skills that I made and fostered in Evansville and learned from building those couple high school football, basketball shows. I brought that to St. Louis and helped create a 30-minute show called The Nightcap and help brand it and help create something that would be like a late night sports talk show. And it turned into something awesome, and we're still doing it today. And now we have 3 reporters and anchors on that show and a producer. And it's grown and evolved in just a little over 2 years since I've been in St. Louis. So that was also a challenge that I faced and turned it into something beautiful. It's like, what are you going to do with this opportunity? Run with it.
Yeah, being able to like see your work, your hard work actually come into play and seeing what you did like on the screen or on social media or get good feedback on it. You're like, oh, I did that. And that's awesome. And I'm so happy that I did that.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's rewarding.
Yes.
It's totally rewarding.
I love to ask this question because I feel like a lot of women have different experiences with it and answers with it. It's super hard to kind of get yourself ready and put yourself out there and put yourself on camera every single day. You're dealing with social media and X and Instagram, and the comparison game is super big. You're seeing other women doing something else and you're like, oh, should I be doing that? Or am I okay sitting where I am right now? How do you handle comparing yourself to others and keeping up with social media and dealing with those comments and those things that you may see? Because it's obviously not easy.
Man, that's so hard. But I gotta be honest, it's become a lot easier for me because I've surrounded myself with incredible women. And that's something that I found here in St. Louis. And it's something I found at Indiana through my sorority, that I knew that having a great army of women was important to me in my life. And when I got here to St. Louis, it was something that I really wanted to find. And you never know where you're going to find that, how you're going to find that. And I've created this really incredible network of women, especially those who work closely with the Cardinals, who we all do different jobs. I have a friend who is a beat reporter. She's breaking news left and right. I have a friend who works directly with the Cardinals as their regional host. I have a friend who is a photographer for not only the MLB, but also the NHL, a friend who's on the marketing side, social media side with the Cardinals, works directly with them. And we hang out all the time and we're learning from each other. And we're not only talking about the job, but we're talking about life experiences and hyping each other up and making each other feel confident. And that's, becoming less and less rare in this industry. We talk about, you talk about the Chicago sports scene and a Taylor McGregor who's open to mentoring young journalists and open to being friends with others. And that's what this industry is trending into. And I love that, because no longer is it, okay, yes, it is competitive, but no longer is it we're all us women are up against each other. It's no, we want an army of women supporting each other and experiencing this wild industry together. And that's something that has helped curve any of those comparison games. It's like, no, she's beautiful for who she is. She's beautiful for who she is. And not only are they beautiful, but they are smart as hell. And they have their own niche in this industry that makes them unique. And that's what allows me to just be cheerleaders for others, and allows me to then accept them, hyping me up as well, and making me feel special in the industry, because we all have something to provide and offer.
Yeah, I always say I think it's so important because it's very easy, especially younger in college, to be like, oh, well, she's doing that. Like, I should do that. But it's also even more rewarding when you become friends with these people and you work together, you work on projects together, you help each other. There's so much that I've learned from just my peers at Indiana, like Premiere Pro or editing skills, or hey, can you check over this thing that I had to write for class? Like, even small, it starts there. And then those relationships grow with you as you get into the professional field. But I think it's something that you really have to realize, like, oh, this is like my army of people. This is who I have to keep close by. And it's so important.
Totally. And I say the women, and it's also the guys too. Like I talked about Tom Ackerman being a mentor for me, just making me feel comfortable. I have a coworker at my station, Maurice, who is the former sports director at our station. He's now the morning anchor. And just being willing to learn from them and ask them questions and feeling vulnerable. That's the easiest way to get out of your own way, is by being vulnerable, asking the right questions, and being willing to learn from others who have different experiences from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of starting to wrap things up a little bit. If you could give either freshman year of college to Mar or senior year of college to Mar one piece of advice or tell her one thing, what would it be?
I think it would be trust yourself, because so often do we get wrapped up in that one hit that didn't go your way, or that one interview that you wish you would have asked that last question in a better way. You know, trust that every single day that you're on the job, it's going to give you a new opportunity, and you're going to be better because of it. And every opportunity leads you into something else, because this industry, so often you get bogged down into that one thing, or that one moment that you wish could have looked a little bit differently, but it's all growing opportunities. And I think to trust yourself, to know that if you put in the work, because you got to put in the prep work, you got to put in the time, and if you trust in that, and if you're genuinely you and authentically you, then you're going to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that looking ahead you're really still trying to accomplish, or any goals that you have today that you're like, "Ugh, I really am going for that. I'm really trying to be like this."
Yeah, I think it's just growing on what I'm doing now and continuing to get opportunity to not only tell those breaking stories and to build relationships with people, but also to dive into more of that work with sideline and dive into any part of the industry that you can just touch and grasp, and just continue to find different experiences. Like I said, I went to the Super Bowl, something that I didn't think that I would do in my first 4 years in the industry, but just continuing to find those moments and capitalizing on those and being able to tell the stories in the best way possible. I think moving forward are goals that I hope to just continue achieving.
Yeah, I also feel like gotta just like go with the flow. Like, I feel like it's so easy to get wrapped up in being like, I want to do this and this and this, and I want to be just like this person. But really, it's like you have no idea where you're going to be 5 years from now, you know?
And I don't know what the industry is going to look like.
Exactly.
Isn't that the hardest part? Because you could say, oh, I really want to be X. I want to be like a sideline reporter for this team. you don't know what opportunities are going to be open to you. You don't know what the landscape's going to look like with the age of social media and all the opportunities that could open up that way. You just need to keep your eyes and mind open, because if you keep doing what you're doing right now, it's creating the podcast and leaning into the new spaces that you could enter. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
100%. Instead of kind of charting yourself off to that one goal that you have. I want to be on ESPN. I want to be, yes, those are great goals to have. Like, always shoot for the stars, but you don't know what the landscape's going to look like in the next 2 to 5 to 15 years.
Yeah. No, it's so crazy. And I tell people this all the time. A year ago today, I was on Cape Cod. I was sideline reporting in the Cape. I would have no idea that I went to LA and just semester in LA and have this podcast. So it's like, you really never know, and so much can change in a year. And I think even as you grow in the industry, that's something important to keep in mind, because you really just don't know.
And I will give one piece of advice to young aspiring journalists. And this is how I got to where I am today. And this evolves over time, but you say yes to opportunities. When you're young in the industry and you're trying to find your way and find your space, allow yourself to lean in, even if things feel uncomfortable, even if you've never shot a high school football game before all by yourself. Say yes, and you learn it and you prep for it and do it. That's like my biggest advice, because when I started to lean into that is when I started to see some of the rewards come my way.
Oh, 100%. Because you just, like, you meet people and people will come up to you, and then one little connection from a small conversation will turn into something huge. You really just never know. So that's also, I've been like, oh, I gotta say yes to this. I have to say yes to everything, which is kind of how you do it, especially when you're young.
Yeah, prioritize you as well. Like, find the balance. You don't want to burn yourself out, but the grind is real, and it is with every industry. I'm not saying it's just sports media, but I found that it's really important to just lean into some discomfort and just get after it. That's the best
Yes.
advice I could possibly give.
Yes, absolutely. My last and final question, which I love to ask, is what makes you fierce in your field? What makes you confident? What do you think makes you stand out as a woman in the field, a person in general?
I think it is what makes me fierce. See, you're asking some great questions. I think it's leaning into relationships. That's what I feel like makes me fierce, because I genuinely want to get to know you. When I meet you and I have a conversation with you, I genuinely, whether it being someone that I'm covering or someone that I am just meeting on the street, like, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your story. And I feel like that opens up a lot of doors for just life and how I live my life. And that's something that has really been something that I've leaned into from IU to Evansville to now St. Louis, and just being willing to open myself up to opportunities through meeting people, connecting with people, and being able and willing to tell their stories and caring, because that's a big thing too, is you have to have empathy and care in this industry, but also just being willing to open yourself up to building those connections with new people and seeing where that takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is like, it's that one thing that's like, oh, I love meeting people and being kind to people and building those relationships. And that makes you special, because people know that you're a good person and someone good to have around. So, Tamar, thank you so much for this. This has been literally so fun. I love talking to you and hearing your story and hearing what you have to share. You are literally doing amazing things. So,
Thank you. And I'm still getting chills by hearing that you fell in love with Indiana on your visit. That is just means the world to me, but also just speaks volumes to what Indiana University is doing. So shout out to them. And thank you for, I'm so glad we've been able to keep a relationship and friendship. It's been so much fun.
You too. No, it's been so awesome. Seriously, I'm so thankful. If you want to go ahead and shout out your socials, where can people find you?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can find me on both X and Instagram at Tamar_Sher. Um, I'm pretty much on every platform, shouting out St. Louis sports, IU sports, whatever I can do. So that's that's where you can find me.
Hey, okay. Well, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Fierce in the Field. Make sure you follow Tamar, keep up with her and her work, and I will see you all soon.